Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. As I'm recording on a rainy and cloudy day, and I was requested the commentary for The Flintstones, the 1994 film starring John Goodman, Rick Moranis. Oh, what the hell is her name? Rosie O'Donnell. No wonder I forgot her name. Elizabeth Perkins is in it. MacLachlan is in it. Halle Berry's in it. But we'll get into that and more. But again, this was a paid request for anyone that wants to request any type of movie review, re-review, random thoughts, streams, commentaries, tier list rankings, video game playthroughs, whatever the case may be. Feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. Do have a CashApp as well. Links are down below in the info box, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. And for those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. So let's get into it. I'm paused at the beginning. For those who want to follow along, 3, 2, 1, pressing play. So it's a black screen, and then Steven Spielberg or Spielrock presents. And then you have the dinosaur here, which I will say one of the positive aspects of the film is the design. The design of some of the sets and the just production design in general. Some of the practical dinosaur effects. Because it's definitely had a decent sized budget behind it. I think about 46 or so million. This is a project that was in the works for a bit because, you know, the Flintstones, popular cartoon. I watched it from time to time back in the day. I didn't watch it a whole lot though. It was not around on TV. Like, my family and I only had ABC, CBS, so Flintstones wasn't airing on those. And I just knew about them when specials about cartoons were talked about or stuff of that nature. Yabba dabba doo, all those iconic phrases and moments. It's funny how a lot of those cartoons, though, they don't really get talked about or mentioned nowadays. The Jetsons, the Flintstones, was it Snagglepuss, and even Pink Panther. Like a lot of those cartoons, but they get pretty forgotten. There's really not much done in terms of even direct to streaming cartoons, reboots, revamps, animations, etc. Well, this was a hit, and then there was a prequel that came out in theaters. Yes, John Goodman. Definitely a pretty good choice for Fred Flintstone. And of course, here is doing the opening intro. Star Wars, of course. Again, the effects, the practical bits on stuff like Dino look pretty neat. When they go into the CGI, you can tell CGI does not hold up the best. But yeah, I would say the design of showcasing the cartoon into a reality is, I would say, its biggest asset. But I was never big on this film because the plot, I thought they picked the wrong story. Like, if you don't have a Flintstones movie, there was one story that was going to be like a road trip. That would make the most sense, where you're really showcasing the world, you're showcasing all the aspects of this world, and then you'd have like different adventures, misadventures, maybe similar to the cartoon, or maybe adaptation of bits and pieces of the cartoon. But to be about getting a job and embezzlement and corporate tactics, it's just such a stupid fucking story to pick. Like, really, this story? Where Fred, like, becomes a jerk and you know, fucks away from his buddy and such. I do like Rick Moranis. I don't know if he was the best choice of a Barney Rubble. I mean, I liked it because it's Rick Moranis. I've always been a fan of his. And I could tell probably in the making of this film, they probably had fun doing it, but I doubt a lot of them look back on this with a fondness of, oh, this is a highlight of my career. I know John Goodman has said, I think the term, he felt he was sandbagged into doing this because Steven Spielberg was the first name we saw, and he's the biggest name in this production. Because, like I said, it was going to be made for a while, and then Spielberg kind of got involved. And when he did that film Always in 1989, which I don't know how many people remember it, Richard Dreyfuss, this pilot that died and his ghost comes back. John Goodman is in the film, and I think John Goodman, the way he put it was, when during the table read, he's like, folks, I found my Fred Flintstone. And he's like, okay. Like, he didn't want to really do the role. He didn't really want to give a shit about the role. But do you say no to Steven Spielberg? Because Steven Spielberg was the biggest name, the most powerful name in Hollywood. Like, if you say no to him, or if you go against him, who knows what repercussions there could be. That could be very a real thing. It says that, okay, I guess I'll do this. I guess I'll say yes to this movie. I think he had fun with it. I'm sure he had fun working with. And see, stuff like that, like that crab-like thing being the lawnmower, those aspects I do like. I think that's very cool to be creative in that. It's just, I never really thought the film was that funny because of the story they picked. I think the puppetry they have on Dino, I think looks pretty good. And then the CGI, it's 1994 CGI, doesn't look the best. But then when they go back to the practical, it's charming. And when you see these early parts of the film, it does seem like they're trying to at least be respectful and capture the feel of the Flintstones, like the costumes, the way Dino looks, like his design. John Goodman, the way he's like trying to play the character with his voice. Because if you think of the Flintstones, it's pretty much the Honeymooners, but if it was in prehistoric times. Just Fred Flintstone was pretty much a take on Jackie Gleason. To the moon, Alice, the moon. If what I remember, yeah, the early aspects of the film aren't too bad. Because you didn't know the world and you're just seeing what other weird, like this whole thing here. You know, the dishwasher stuff. You know, what they don't come up with next, but it's, you know. I guess when you get to the bit just the plot where it really, I think, falters, in my opinion, that is. Now, 1994 was a pretty good year for movies because you had The Lion King, you had True Lies, you had the film Speed, which I think this was #1, and then Speed took over 2 or so weeks later. And this is directed by Brian Levant. Brian Levant, he had done Problem Child 2 and Beethoven. I think after this he did Jingle All the Way, which I think is his best movie. I quite like that movie with Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. I think that's a very fun Christmas film. But he did like Snow Dogs. He did The Spy Next Door, which was pretty much, hey, what if Jackie Chan was in The Pacifier? And wasn't even as good as The Pacifier. He did A Christmas Story 2, which is notoriously bad. I mean, obviously this is his biggest hit. Jingle All the Way is probably his most beloved, because I know I'm not the only one that likes that film. But that wasn't a huge hit. Beethoven was a hit. This was a big hit. I mean, this made over 100 million. I think 130 million in the U.S. So when you have a $40-some million budget and you made over 130 million, I think it made 240 million worldwide. That's a pretty big hit. But it got completely crushed by the critics. I think that, among other reasons, is why you did not see a sequel right away. I mean, I don't know the details. There's probably other details to factor. Maybe the actors. I guess maybe they didn't get a deal where it's like a 3-picture deal. Maybe just a 1-picture. Maybe the actors did not want to come back for a sequel. Or maybe they felt that if they do come back, they'd have to pay a lot more money, so it had to be a bigger budget. So they figured, well, if you up the budget, let's say the 70 million or 80 million, well, your first film made 130 million. If your second film makes less money, then it kind of would either even out or maybe even lose money. I don't know. I don't know the details on that. I didn't, whether the actors didn't want to come back or what have you. So they have a kid, and the kid's already that far grown, huh? I mean, usually you'd have like a baby, but here it's like, well, we'd have Bam Bam, so he's got to be that size. That's how he is in the cartoon. You know, I wasn't even paying attention, so I don't even remember if this was like they adopted him or something. They probably told I just completely wasn't paying attention. Yeah, some of the humor is just trying to be very, very just on the nose. Like you have the McDonald's thing right there, and you have all the stuff of that nature. So here we have Rip Moranis and Rosie O'Donnell. Rip Moranis, like I said, always enjoyed him. He was in, of course, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Ghostbusters, and Spaceballs. And, you know, we get to be starring in other films like Big Bully and some other stuff. And then, sometime in the mid to late 90s, he kind of just retired. I mean, his wife died. He wanted to just take care of his kids and be away from Hollywood, and that's, you know, a noble gesture. Because I think one of his last starring roles was Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, because he was really, I guess he figured the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was his franchise, because that's the one he's openly willing to come back to. Does he start in the second film? He started in the third film. they were going to reboot it and he was going to star in that, but then the pandemic happened and that film got canceled. Really, that film didn't get brought back up when the pandemic was done, but I just nowadays it's like he's doing Spaceballs too. I know in between he did the voice work in Brother Bear. He did a commercial with Ryan Reynolds a few years ago. But he kind of... And then there was that horrible thing where some asshole just went up and punched him for no reason. That was in the news. And people were like, fuck this guy. Justice for Rick Moranis. Just... He didn't do anything to anybody. I mean, I don't really need a Spaceballs 2. I don't look forward to it because sequels made so long ago afterward, they don't work out. Dumb and Dumber 2. I've heard no good things about This Is Spinal Tap 2. Clerks 3 was pretty horrible. I don't know, I just don't see it working out. I mean, hey, if it surprises me, oh well, but... Actor John Goodman here. Always enjoyed him as an actor. Loved him in Arachnophobia. Love him in The Big Lebowski. They tried to make him a star. It just were not the best projects. I mean, you had The Babe, where he was Babe Ruth, and even he admitted he wished he had another crack at it because they didn't quite get what they needed. And then you had Teen Ralph, which I never really cared a whole lot about. And then this was a huge hit for him, and of course he was on Roseanne, and then later The Conners. Now, one of the guys around there is Richard Mole. I forgot he was in this. Richard Mole, may he rest in peace. Of course, he was in the first House film. He was on the TV show Night Court. Bit parts here and there. A bit part in Evolution with David Duchovny, where he was training Sean William Scott in the firefighting duties. National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1 and the Sounds of Lands bit, where he's like, to the right, I bet stay to the right. And Elizabeth Taylor. She's been in a few things. If you don't know who she is, look her up. She's plenty of stuff from way back in the day. Top Hollywood royalty, so to speak. But yeah, Oh, I should mention the other person, Elizabeth Perkins, who plays Wilma. If she looks a bit familiar, if you ever seen the recent film The Housemaid, Amanda Seyfried and such, pretty decent film. I was a bit surprised by it. The girl who plays Wilma played the asshole's mother, the guy's mother, which she was a bitchy character. So it's kind of where it's kind of how Elizabeth Taylor's playing this role is how Elizabeth Perkins will play her role in The Housemaid. Now, I don't know if this is true, but this is information that's supposedly out there. So if it's not true, it's not my fault. It's just the information that's been put out there in the ether. It says Gina Davis, Faith Ford, and Catherine O'Hara were all considered for the role of Wilma, but Elizabeth Perkins eventually won the role. I probably could see Gina Davis in it more. Just I'm not really sure about Perkins as Wilma. Danny DeVito was originally the first choice for Barney, which Danny DeVito, I could see that, but he turned down the role as he felt he was too gruff to do the character properly. Reportedly suggested Rick Moranis for the role. Janine Turner was considered. Rosie O'Donnell won the role of Betty Rubble with her impersonation of the cartoon character's signature giggle. Both Tracy Ullman and Daphne Zuniga were also considered for the role. Sharon Stone was to play Miss Stone, but she turned it down because of scheduling conflicts. The role was offered to Nicole Kidman. Again, does all the production design and the different creatures and puppetry is what makes the film, some fun novelty in there. But the characters are playing, they're very broad. The cartoon itself is very broad. And we have Kyle MacLachlan, who, of course, was in the David Lynch film Dune. He was on Twin Peaks. In this pretty good 80s horror film, The Hidden. And here is kind of starring the whole unscrupulous job stuff, which... it makes me wonder why, of all the strips, this is the one they chose to go with. Maybe they thought it'd be like wittier or more clever than they thought, or they thought, well, we don't want to, this is their way of not dumbing it down, so we have like office politics, and we have something for the adult audiences to get into, because the kids will get into the goofy hijinks and the pratfalls and the... I think Rosie O'Donnell was a horrible fucking Betty Rubble. And then somewhere it said, well, she could do the giggle. You tell me nobody else could do the giggle? Because, Betty Rubble is actually, pretty. And I know this is rude, but fine, it'll be rude. Rosie O'Donnell's not pretty. She's never been pretty. Never, ever. I just don't think she was the right choice. I don't think she was the right call for it. Not one single bit. So the idea here is that Barney Rubble does well, but then he switches it so that Fred Flintstone will get what he desired. But yeah, this has a 5.1 on IMDb, and yeah, that makes sense when you see it. It does make me wonder, like, what was on those tablets and what kind of questions there are that you had to have enough time to be able to chisel the answers to it. Yeah, that's where you realizes just how terrible it is. I mean, I will say Rick Moranis is, at least his voice, he's trying to have that Barney Rubble tone to it. So, yeah, I would say the actors are not really the problems with the film. At least the main two. And there's Halle Berry, the beautiful Halle Berry. Who, of course, would later be in John Wick 3. She was in this underrated film called Kidnap. Catwoman, of course, among many others. Of course, nice nod there to the cartoon character. I just the thought is that it's stone, so it'd probably be hard to make an actual, like person's photograph. You'd have to just paint one. So paint an approximation of him. I do remember when this came out that yeah, McDonald's had these glasses, these mugs, and I can't remember if I had. I think I had a couple. I think we had a couple of them because I remember some were kind of like they're made of glass, but the handle, the shape was like a, imagine like a rock for the handle. So there's like a top like square portion, and it's a bit like blocky because even though it's made of glass, the shape of it was like it was made of stone and such. I think we did have a couple of them. That's when McDonald's did that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think Batman Forever they did that as well, something like that. They don't really do that stuff nowadays. McDonald's. It's not really a thing nowadays. I mean, once in a while there's probably maybe a. I don't even know. Do they even do toy things? I'm assuming they do, but at least the one that's around here, usually back to the day when I'm a kid or a teenager, there'd be like a big display and they would show the different toys. There'd be promotions, and now you don't really see that. Maybe that's just where I'm at, but you don't really see that nowadays. Now it's just, here's this influencer or here's this person, go buy their meal. That's what it seems like. I was like, okay, go buy their meal. If you say so. And that's the thing, like, even almost 30 minutes in, I wouldn't say anything was, I thought, hilarious or funny. It's just, to repeat, looking at the production design, the creatures that they made for it, the dinosaurs they made for it, the way the world is designed. Easily the best part of it. But I was saying before, this got critically lambasted. I mean, for a couple credits, it was the worst film. I mean, am I big on this film? No. Do I think it's the worst film in 1994? No, far from it. But a couple credits, it was like number 1 or number 2 worst of the year. I think it was up for some Razzies. I think Rosie O'Donnell won for like worst supporting actress. Might have won another award for worst. And that's maybe another reason why they didn't jump ahead with a sequel, because they saw, well, there's a lot of people that didn't like this. Like, they saw the film because they're curious about it, because they like the characters, because they like the promotion. They go, wow, this seems like an eye-catching theme. Spielberg's name did sell movies. Because Steven Spielberg, even the films he produced, Who Framed Roger Rabbit he produced, Poltergeist he produced, even they can sell fairly well. Not all the time. I mean, Batteries Not Included was not a blockbuster. I don't mind that film, but it wasn't a blockbuster. But I mean, for a summer release, kids picture, maybe some people knew and could see the forest for the trees of, well, maybe not, because then they made a prequel that they put a lot of money into it, and they put it in theaters in 2000 or something. So maybe not. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, because they not only do you make a prequel, again, big budget in the theaters. I mean, I'm like, that's going to be a flop. You don't have the actors back. You have lesser named actors. It's 6 or so years later. So any momentum you may have had is lost its luster. So I'm just looking at this bird puppet that they have. What material did they make the... He's got like a little basketball. What fucking material did they make that out of? Does it bounce? Maybe one they have like a rock, but actually bounced up back to them. And yeah, all the puns, Cliff Vandercave. I mean, again, that was probably like an aspect of the cartoon. I mean, some may argue that they don't even think the cartoon was all that good. I mean, some may argue that. Just kind of curious about some. So I looked up, like, why was the 1994 film disliked? I was just curious what it would say, and it says the original cartoon was a family-friendly sitcom, but the movie relied on plot points that were too mature and boring for children. Children could not understand or enjoy a narrative centered around corporate embezzlement, executive office politics, and industrial procurement. The script went through dozens of revisions with upwards of 32 to 35 writers contributing to different drafts. Because so many people worked on it, the final product felt stitched together. Co-creator Joseph Barbera even remarked that while the visuals were impressive, the story was not as good as I could have made it. Many felt that the simplicity of a 30-minute cartoon did not translate well into a 90-minute feature film. So it relied heavily on relentless, aggressive prehistoric puns and domestic squabbling that made the character dynamics feel antiquated and cringeworthy. Audiences and critics heavily criticized the casting of Rosie O'Donnell as Betty Rubble and Elizabeth Taylor as Pearl's side Hoople, feeling they did not look or act like the beloved animated characters. Yeah, we did Roosters. You don't like the film. Drank his shit before giving it to him. I guess that's the thing for a lot of these cartoons is it enough for them to just exist, or are they only able to exist in their original format, in their original platform? Like, could a Flintstones movie ever truly exist in a good way for 90 minutes? Or is it like, you know what? It's always going to falter, so but just you either have to make sure you fit the right story, or there'd be like a lot of padding involved. And if there's padding, you gotta make sure that you know, it's successful. Of course, Bam Bam fucked up all that stuff. There's a lot of money now down the drain. Yeah, isn't that, I'm trying to solely remember this stuff. They go through a lot of money issues and troubles that if Barney had gotten this job, then they'd be doing well. And then Fred gets more and more into this, pull into this corporate hostility. I guess some people would say the same thing with video games. Can some video games actually be turned into a movie? I mean, take Super Mario Brothers. I mean, I didn't see the new one, but the previous one, a couple years ago, the animated one, very successful, made $1 billion, and showed that there's an audience for it, and it was fine. Again, I have not seen the second one, but it was fine, and pretty much just a lot of references to the video games. There's the sound effects, there's the blocks, there's the characters. Pretty thin story. Then people argue, well, does the story really matter in this kind of film? Because it's not like you're basing it off of Shakespeare. It's not like you're basing it off of Hamlet. It's not like you base it off of some grand piece of celluloid, or I should say, grand piece of narrative. You better be lucky it's just a movie, because, man, back to the day, that boy would have gotten a whipping. And you gotta think, back in the day, the dad would take to the damn club and smack the kid in the head with it. Or break his legs. Hell, if it was the 80s, you'd take a fucking belt and smack him right in the backside. I forgot about that joke. Because that's what this needed. A big dino shit joke. Come on, man. That was so cringe. I forgot about that. Everyone's running because a big pterodactyl flying dinosaur dropped a big old bird shit on it. It is weird to have, you have a character that keeps wanting to seduce your main character and tantalize him and sexualize in a fucking kid's cartoon. It's a bit weird. It's like some of the stuff in the first Scooby-Doo movie. But I think the idea of the first Scooby-Doo movies, they wanted to do like an R-rated movie. Like to really just James Gunn's writing it and just fuck around with it, and they're like, what are you guys doing? So elements of there are in it, but then there's like, wait a minute, this maybe should be PG-13, which is I don't think people really wanted to see an R-rated Scooby-Doo movie. I mean, but maybe some are and be curious about it, but that's the weird thing, like the first Scooby-Doo movie, some of those weird, like, some of the ideas and elements, like Scrappy-Doo being the villain, I thought were actually pretty clever. It does have a weird tone at times, though. Hell, I think the second one had a more consistent tone and was more like the cartoon, but wasn't as good as the first, so I don't know. I don't make these movies. I'm not the guy, I guess, to answer those questions. I'm not the guy to know what the hell I'm talking about. Like, I'm not an expert on the Flintstones. I mean, I've never seen like a full season. I mean, I saw what the Halloween special I got requested. That's probably the only full bit of anything I've seen of the Flintstones cartoon wise. That's not just little bits and pieces of stuff. The sad thing is, this might be John Goodman's biggest hit movie wise. Because if I looked at his filmography, just look real quick. Now TV, I mean, Roseanne was probably the biggest hit he was in. 1988 to 1997, and then came back with the. It was Roseanne then the Connors. He's done a lot of other TV work throughout the years. Like the Connors was 2018 to 2025, so even that was a lot of fucking years. He was a voice in the Flintstones video game? Oh, Monsters Inc. That might be. That actually might be the biggest film he's been in. See, if I looked at John Goodman's filmography, he started off in bit roles. He was a cop in Chud in the diner. I'm like, oh, there's John Goodman. He was the coach in Revenge of the Nerds. Raised in Arizona. Worked with the Coen brothers. That's a fun role. He was a cop in Burglar, the Whoopi Goldberg film. Sea of Love with Al Pacino. A pretty decent film. He was Pacino's partner. Rotnophobia. That may be well, that's my second favorite character he played. That's Dilbert the Exterminator. My favorite is Walter in The Big Lebowski. This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass. But yeah, Teen Ralph, The Babe. Matinee, which I saw recently, he was pretty good in it. It didn't really do much box office wise. After the Flintstones, he was in Pie in the Sky, which I never heard of before. I forgot about The Borrowers. Fallen, I forgot about that one with Denzel Washington. Was not a fan of that movie. Blues Brothers 2000. But then The Big Lebowski. Bringing Out the Dead, that's a pretty good one with Martin Scorsese. I always forget Coyote Ugly exists. But yeah, there's a voice in The Emperor's New Groove, a voice in Monsters Inc. He was the voice of Baloo in The Jungle Book 2. Animated film. Did not know that. Death Sentence he was in with Kevin Bacon. Speed Racer, I saw that again recently. That's a fun movie. He played the dad. He was good in Patriots Day. He was good on Costco Island. Sorry, just looking over his recent stuff. And the 2025 film The Smurfs, he was Papa Smurf. I didn't know that. Some films that I've heard of. Easy Does It. Please Don't Destroy the Treasure of Foggy Mountain. He's in that new film Digger. That's the film with Tom Cruise that seems like humongous budget. I'm guessing that film's not going to do well because it's like that budget seems like they'll never recoup it. So, as we've been seeing on the screen, sorry I haven't paid attention to it. It's one family getting richer, one family getting poorer, one family doing well for themselves, one doing all sorts of pains, physical pain, financial pain. Why they wouldn't, I mean, that's the point, is that Fred, I would understand, because the idea is that, oh, he is not the smartest guy, he's not the sharpest stone, he's oblivious to what's going on with Barney and Betty Rubble. But Wilma, you would think Wilma would at least notice what's going on and try to offer help. It says here in 1985, producers Keith Barrett and Joel Silver bought the rights for a live-action film of the Flintstones. Stephen E. D'Souza would write it and Richard Donner would direct it. More writers came in. Writers were replaced. One idea was Fred and Barney leaving town during a terrible depression and go across the country looking for jobs. It was too sentimental for Richard Donner. That's weird that would be... Richard Donner would say that because, Superman, there's some good sentimental stuff in that. Eventually the rights were bought by Amblin Entertainment and Steven Spielberg. Worked with John Goodman on Always and was determined to cast him as Fred Flintstone. Eventually they got Brian Levant, and he got a bunch of people who had written TV shows like Family Ties, Night Court, and Happy Days sitcom on steroids just trying to improve it. One of those scripts that had about 18 writers. That many fucking writers for a Flintstones movie. Now, I think this band is the B-52s. I know the B-52s, they did a theme song for this. They're the ones who did the song Love Shack, la la Love Shack, Love Shack, baby. There was also this documentary called Trekkies, and I think they did like the theme, at least for the first one. It says here John Candy, Jim Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Chevy Chase were considered for Fred Flintstone. Some of them were deemed too skinny for the part. I could see John Candy. But yeah, John Goodman did a good job on it. So yeah, Fred is too stupid. He signed a bunch of shit just because. But he's going to get framed for embezzlement, and it's going to get a lot of people fired, and a lot of people pissed off at him and such. I guess from a writer's point of view, they figured they want to have some love that the characters have with each other, then some conflict that they have with each other, which will result in some drama to hopefully up the stakes, so that eventually then they work together and work out each other's problems and issues, and to try to do stuff that maybe you could not or would not do in a cartoon. Jim Henson's Creature Shop did the prehistoric creatures. Makes sense why they're so good. CGI was ILM. Ooh, that's a good punch. Yeah, McDonald's, not only did they have those glass mugs, but they brought back the McRib. And they had the Grand Poobah Meal Combo. Toys based on characters, locations from the films. Yeah, 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. Cynical story awash with lame puns. Roger Ebert said the production design was delightful and inventive, highlight of the film, but the story's confusing, not very funny, and kind of odd given the target audience of younger children and their families, who are uninterested in embezzling and mother-in-law problems. Kevin Turan says it favors visuals over writing. New York Times says John Goodman goes a long way towards carrying the Flintstones over a script that is essentially a bunch of rot jokes and puns stretched to a feature-length film. See, the Washington Post, Miami New Times said it was the worst film of the year. Janet Maslin of the New York Times said it was the third worst. The Pantagraph said it was the fifth worst. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone said it was the 10th worst of the year. Rosie O'Donnell won for Worst Supporting Actress. It also won for Worst Screenplay. It was nominated for Worst Remake or Sequel. In this case, Adaptation. Yeah, in 2000, Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas, which had an $83 million budget, so they did double the budget, like I was saying before. That's why when I was saying that before, I kind of trailed off and went, wait a minute, didn't they do that for the prequel? And which is funny because I reviewed the prequel. And there's aspects of the prequel I don't mind. I think there's certain aspects of the prequel that do stuff better than this one. But I think this one, the main two, John Goodman and Rick Moranis, are better. But I think there, like Betty, I thought was a lot better. Yeah, pause for a second just to make sure. But 1 hour, 1 minute, well, 1 hour and 2 minutes in, Fred's driving to the into the shitter, so to speak. Universal Pictures initially greenlit 2 sequels to the Flintstones to be filmed back-to-back in the vein of Back to the Future 2 and 3. John Goodman refused to reprise his role out of fear of typecasting. Okay. Well, that answered my question. John Goodman didn't want to be typecast, so since he said no, they're like, okay, we gotta just go a different route. So Universal did want to do a sequel. The director then retooled the film into a prequel. Yeah, that one made $10 million its opening weekend, and it made $35 million in the U.S. at $59 million worldwide. Well, yeah, again, your cast doesn't come back. People liked John Goodman. He doesn't come back. I always forget it had double the budget of this one. And Your cast doesn't come back. It's 6 years later. Again, anyone who did like it is just kind of worn off by that point. Again, I keep reiterating this point. When I see parts of this film, I'm like, okay, what parts are funny or supposed to be funny? I mean, the production design can only go so far, but I don't find much of it that entertaining, like as a comedy. You know, I think of The Big Lebowski, I could think of, oh, there's Jay Leno. Oh, poor guy. Kicked to the curb. Oh, Jonathan Winters. I forgot he was in this. Old school comedian back in the day. Jonathan Winters. I remember him in some of the old like Scooby Doo movies, where they have like Don Knotts in one or Batman in one. Jonathan Winters was in one or two of them, and I remember he was pretty good. Let him pretend to be like a helicopter. I'm just laughing just because I like Jonathan Winters, not really because of what's on screen. Halle Berry is a very gorgeous lady, I gotta say. Beautiful lady. I said, always been a big fan of hers. Even back to the day, like The Last Boy Scout she was in. She was in Executive Decision. I don't like the film, but I don't mind her in it. Like, she does what she can. I believe she was supposed to be in Broken Arrow with Christian Slater, but someone in the production, not John Woo, one of the producers said the job that the character had, a park ranger, whatever, there's no such thing as black park rangers. It's something like that, which is so fucking ridiculous. And I don't remember who it was. Was it Joel Silver? Was he part of that? Nah. I don't remember who it was, but they deserve a punch in the face. Whoever the hell that was. A big old punch in the face. Which I guess is why. Well, think it was after she, with a different, because that was Fox. I think later she took the executive decision for Warner Brothers. Idea, is this really an exciting story? Fred Flintstone in hiding because he's accused of stealing from the company. Wilma and Betty have to steal this bird and all this other shit. Don't get me wrong, it's cool to see Jonathan Winters and Richard Mall, but and then they have like, I mean, that's the thing is that for the little bit of the beginning you had a bit of this Fred and Barney, but then for a good chunk of it they're separated, and then they're not, one hates the other and they're against each other. And again, if you're a fan of the Barney and Fred dynamic, you don't, you only get to see a little bit of that in the beginning, and then it goes this weird direction to be like a Scooby-Doo movie where Scooby and Shaggy were hating each other for half the movie, or one was hating the other. I don't know, just maybe like a third movie where you establish the characters and say, oh man, they're going through tough times. I remember the good times in the first or second film. The actors are trying. I gotta say, the actors are trying. And I just see I mean, do I despise this film? No. Do I hate the film? No. Is it watchable? Yes, for the main two actors and to beat it over the head, the production design. I do like the everyone just got their snow cones. Good puppetry work by Jim Henson. Again, that stuff and just how everything's built does look really cool. Very cool indeed. I don't blame it. I did Dino before the bitchy mother-in-law too. So I'm not saying anything. But I know for a decent amount of people, this is like a childhood favorite, as a film they grew up with and they just love and cherish. And I can understand that to a point. I can. It's kind of, I would say, I'm looking up at my Super Mario Brothers, the 1993 movie. How people feel about this is how I feel about that movie. Like that movie, I really do like and really do enjoy. Bob Hoskins, even John Leguizamo, Dennis Hopper, the production design. But there's moments in there that I do chuckle or laugh at, and I do kind of like the story in that film, and I like how weird and quirky it is, and that is a film I do enjoy and like. And it's one of those things where I'm a bit surprised that this film hasn't gotten like a big special edition. Now it may have a Blu-ray, but so there's a Steelbook 4K, but I don't know if there's anything on it. Okay, so it says 4K transfer from the original negative. Intro by Brian Levant and Dean Cundy, because Dean Cundy was a cinematographer. Dean Cundy was also a cinematographer in many John Carpenter films like The Thing, I think Back to the Future, and such as well. Commentary with pop culture historian Russell Dieball, commentary with the director. Discovering Bedrock documentary. I don't know if that's a new one or if that's an old one. Trying to see if there's a review that says what that is. It's weird, I'm not seeing a review of this. Oh, it comes out in June? Oh, it's not out yet. No wonder, it's not out yet. Okay. Well, okay, that one makes sense. So, okay, it's not out yet. What? This is a different one. Let me check real quick. Yeah, June 2nd, 2026, so no wonder. Halle Berry saves the day. I can see why Spielberg was so adamant to get John Goodman for the role. because it does seem like a perfect fit. The more I watch it, the more I'm remembering it, because it's been a while since I've seen this film. But yeah, his mannerisms and all that stuff, he really does what he can with the role. But again, if you have like 18 or so writers on a film, it just either gets very sanitized or just gets very. It's hard for a vision to come out from that, script wise. So they splash a lot of money onto the look of the film, which I think panned out for them to sell with marketing and trailers, and people go, "Whoa, we gotta go see this on a big screen just to see the look of it." And there were a bunch of like, not just cartoons but TV shows being made into movies. You had the Addams Family in what, '93. And throughout this era, you had like My Favorite Martian became a movie, Scooby Doo in the 2002, a movie. I'm trying to think what other TV. I mean, there's other TV shows in that era. I'm surprised that with the Flintstones' success, they didn't immediately go into a Jetsons movie. I mean, they've been talking about it for a while, but kind of a creepy aspect. Think about it, that, your villain is now frozen in death in there right behind everybody. Again, this kind of a nice, again, continuation of the cartoon intro. I mean, you can't say that they didn't, pay attention. They didn't like try to have stuff, faithful to the show. I mean, it's a pretty short film, an hour and 24 minutes long, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. As I said, for the umpteenth time, credit to the production designers. They definitely did deserve recognition. If they didn't get it, then that's a shame. They deserve more and more. I think critics did, but award-wise, I think this, if this was nominated for an award for production design, it should have been. Because those have imagination and creativity to make that world a reality. Jim Henson's Creature Shop, kudos to them. Those are the highlights of the film, as well as John Goodman and even Rick Moranis. They watch this again. Those are the best parts of it. I just wish it had a better story. I wish it had a better plot. I wish it was actually funny. Because, like I said, there's really nothing that made me chuckle or laugh or anything of that nature. But yeah, I did. I love Jingle All the Way, like I said, but I don't think the guy who did... I mean, and I don't mind Beethoven. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind Beethoven for what it is. But when I get the guy who did that and Problem Child 2 to do your Flintstones movie, I would get... You probably could not get Ivan Reitman, but I would get an Ivan Reitman type of comedy director to do this kind of film. But yeah, no, that's just me. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care. Thanks once again, Manuel. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye for now.